Hey gang, Eric here. So recently my brother decided to go camping and he was kind enough to let me stay at his apartment, which is really cool because I haven't lived in the city in a really long time, even if it was just for a few days. It was a really big deal. But being back here in Richmond proper it gave me some feelings. I just thought I'd talk to you guys about it. So basically, when I first came back home from college, once I graduated, I was really worried about moving back into the suburbs. I'd spent my whole life in the suburbs before I went to college, and moving into the city was a life-changing moment for me. I never had a car growing up, and life in the suburbs just is not possible without a car. It would probably take you an hour just to get out of the neighborhood if you're going to try to walk somewhere. Moving into the city finally gave me the means to take care of myself for the first time. I could job hunt on my own terms without having to worry about someone else's schedule because there were stores in walking distance. I could walk to the grocery store and feed myself. I still remember going to the grocery store for the first time on my own and just having the luxury to look at everything for the first time. I walked up and down every single aisle just looking. I could never do that before. It was a really big deal. Having my own place for the first time was a big deal too. I still had roommates, but I still had some ownership of the place. Chores stopped being a hassle because I was taking care of my place. I didn't mind cleaning because I was doing it not out of some obligation, but because I just wanted a clean place. And for the first time, I knew where every single thing in the house was because I put it there. The furniture was mine, the layout was mine. It seems like a small thing, but it was a really big deal. I could finally make a home for myself. And moving back home with my parents, I felt like I was going to lose all of that. And I tried to console myself that it was only for a little bit, that I'd find a good job, and I would be back to having my own place soon, but a few years have gone by now, and I'm still with my parents, and those old feelings feel like they're kind of getting more and more distant. So when my brother decided to go camping this weekend and offered to let me stay at his apartment in the city while he was gone, I jumped at the opportunity. I'd have a space to myself again, even if it was just for a few days, and I'd be back in the city. I could walk to places again. I could start the day with a leisurely stroll to a coffee shop, or spend my lunch break walking to a takeout place around the corner, rather than having to drive half an hour out and back to some fast food drive-thru. I could go to a show and grab a drink without having to worry about driving home. But staying in the city, though, wasn't without its downsides. And when I moved into my brother's apartment for the weekend, the bad came with the good. There was the loneliness. During my last semester at college, my roommate and I had a falling out, and he went and stayed at his girlfriend's place the last month or two before our lease was up. It was the first time I had an apartment completely to myself, and while the freedom was liberating in some aspects, it also brought a coldness to the place. There's a special kind of eeriness to coming home to an empty apartment every night. You're the only life the place has, so when you leave, all the life leaves home with you, and the place kind of dies and becomes a corpse in your absence. Every time you come home when you live alone is like walking into a mausoleum. It's cold, it's empty, and it's dark. Staying at my brother's place very likely meant not having any human contact for several days. And there's a cruel irony to cities when it comes to loneliness. Being surrounded by people has a way of making the loneliness stand out. The contrast between your environment and your inner life makes the pain really pop. It highlights it. And having the supposed solution, just being around people, be what eviscerates you, makes the claws extra sharp. So it was kind of weird. When I packed up to go to my brother's apartment, it felt like I was moving out. It was only 4 days, so it was kind of ridiculous, but it still felt that way. My parents said they were going to feel like empty nesters, and there was this feeling of goodbye. And when I pulled up in front of my brother's apartment building on that dark city street, I felt a little fear. That uncertain fear when you move out for the first time, when you're standing in your own place and suddenly the weight of your responsibility begins to press on your shoulders. But also that's the nature of responsibility. There's a great freedom and power in it, but also fear. And responsibility should scare you. If it doesn't, you're probably not taking it seriously. And it's okay to be scared sometimes. Fear happens. Fear doesn't automatically mean panic, it just means you're aware of the possible consequences. Being afraid just means you have to handle it is all, and we all handle it. Panicking and letting it destroy you doesn't get you out of handling. It just means you have to handle it later after you're done freaking out, in addition to handling whatever the consequences were for freaking out on top of all that. It's not a matter of whether or not you can handle it, you will. And even if that just has to be eventually, you will eventually handle it. You don't get a choice in the matter. It's just life. Life goes on. Whether you handle it or not, you're gonna have to handle it. So it was such a small thing having my own place again for a few days after it had been so long, but it brought some big feelings with it. And it helped remove some of the romance in moving out, but at the same time, I felt like I got a taste of something I've needed for a long time now. I don't want to say everything you want in life will disappoint you. I don't think that's quite it. But it does have a way of reminding you that at the end of the day, life is just kind of life. Travel, long-sought jobs, or living situations, the things you dream of, eventually getting them isn't bad. Life just has a way of reverting everything back to a kind of neutral mode. Neither high nor low. If you ever find yourself halfway across the world, traveling in Australia or something, and you're sitting in your hotel room wondering, why doesn't it feel like you're having the time of your life and things just feel kind of ordinary, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that life is always just sort of life, no matter where you are. Magic populates dreams. Life just kind of consists of a kind of crushing ordinariness. But ordinary can be nice too. So that's what's going on. I don't know. Any of you guys desperately trying to move out? Do you think it's going to live up to how much you've hyped it up, or do you think it's going to be just, back to life? Not as dramatic as you're thinking it is. Talk to me. See you later.